The Intergalactic Academy of Advanced Learning was a hub for beings from all corners of the galaxy, each bringing their own unique experiences and knowledge. Students from various planets roamed the halls, exchanging ideas, cultures, and occasionally, fierce rivalries. Among them, the CNS were infamous for their pride in their species' exceptional ability to recall every detail they had ever encountered with perfect accuracy. This incredible feat was a point of immense pride for them, particularly among the younger generations. Viner, a young Soren whose translucent skin shimmered in the light like a prism, was no exception. Standing confidently at the front of the classroom, he basked in the attention he garnered from his peers. His melodic voice rang out across the room as he boasted of his abilities. "Test me on anything," he declared, raising his 6 delicate fingers. "I can recall the coordinates of the Andromeda archives, the entire timeline of the Galactic Wars, even the pauses Professor K made during his lecture last week. Go ahead, ask away." The class, a mixture of alien species with a few humans in the back, was eager to take up the challenge. FAS, a tall reptilian student from Koron, flicked his tongue with a sly grin before speaking. "What did Professor Krill say exactly when discussing quantum singularity stabilization?" Without missing a beat, Viner straightened up, his multifaceted eyes flashing. "Professor Krill said, quantum singularity stabilization relies on the harmonics of gravitational resonance, and when calculated precisely, these harmonics align spacetime curvature to create a sustainable framework," he recited, his voice smooth. He even tapped his data pad 3 times while explaining. The room erupted into applause, and even FAS gave a nod of respect. Viner's pride swelled as he soaked in the praise, but when his gaze fell upon the humans sitting at the back of the room, he noticed one in particular. Emma, a quiet yet sharp student, was diligently taking notes, her green eyes fixed on her work. She appeared unaffected by Viner's display of prowess. This lack of attention irked him. He thrived on admiration, and the indifference of the humans stung. "Hey, you there, human girl," he called, pointing a slender finger at Emma. The room went still, all eyes on her. She met his gaze calmly, her face unreadable. "Do humans not value memory, or are you simply incapable of matching our abilities?" Viner taunted, his voice dripping with superiority. Emma looked up, unfazed by his challenge. "Memory matters," she replied evenly, "but what you choose to remember is what truly holds value." A soft chuckle rippled through the room, and it was hard to tell whether the students were laughing at her or with her. Viner's smug expression faltered, and his crystalline features tightened in frustration. "Understanding comes second to accuracy," he shot back. "Without memory, how can you understand? Maybe you would like to prove your human understanding. How about a memory duel?" The atmosphere shifted. The idea of a memory duel, a common challenge among the excellents, sparked excitement. The duel required competitors to listen to a detailed, complex lecture and then repeat it word for word. It was a challenge Saurians typically dominated. Viner's challenge was designed to publicly undermine Emma. She could sense the weight of her peers' judgment as their eyes settled on her, waiting for her to either accept the challenge or retreat. After a brief pause, Emma closed her notebook, offering a slight shrug as she leaned back in her chair. "Fine," she said calmly. "I accept." The room buzzed with whispers. Some were amazed by her nerve, while others were already certain of her impending defeat. Even a few humans exchanged glances filled with doubt. Viner, satisfied with how easily he had provoked her, grinned. "You'll regret this," he warned, his voice laced with smug assurance. "The duel is set for 3 days from now. You'll have plenty of time to prepare, though it won't do you any good." Emma gave a small nod, her composure unwavering. She turned her attention back to her notebook, as though the matter had already been settled. Viner, feeling victorious, returned to his admirers, eager to bask in their admiration. As the class dismissed, most students rushed out, but Emma lingered, calmly packing her things. A few humans stayed behind, unsure whether to approach her. Finally, Ryan, one of the more vocal members of their group, broke the silence. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice low but laced with concern. "Viner's memory is perfect. You know how Saurians are, like living data pads." Emma zipped up her bag, offering a faint smile. "I know what they say," she replied, "but memory isn't just about retaining facts. It's about connections, context, and meaning. That's where humans shine." Ryan looked unconvinced, his brow furrowed. "Even so, this is a memory duel. It's all about exact recall. You're stepping into his domain." Emma stood and swung her bag over her shoulder. Sometimes the best way to surprise someone is to step right into their territory. She walked past him, leaving Ryan and the others behind, their uncertainty hanging in the air. The challenge had been issued and the stage was set. For the next 3 days, the atmosphere at the academy was electric with anticipation. Students placed bets, formed alliances, glances and argued over strategies. Most were certain that Viner would win easily, but a few, curious about Emma's calm resolve, began to wonder if she had something up her sleeve. Humans, after all, had a reputation for turning perceived weaknesses into unexpected strengths. The Academy's library, a stunning and vast hall filled with floating holographic books and interactive data interfaces, became the backdrop for both Viner and Emma's preparation. The library, a common haven for students across species, was where Viner and Emma chose to hone their skills in the days leading up to the duel. Viner, his crystalline skin faintly glowing in the library's soft light, had staked out a central table surrounded by eager onlookers. His study sessions quickly became performances. His 6 delicate fingers moved with precision across the holographic interface, calling up complex texts, ranging from dense equations to historical treaties to intricate star maps. Every now and then, he would recite a passage aloud with flawless precision, his voice almost musical. The students around him marveled at his ability to recall information with perfect clarity. Emma, in stark contrast, found a quiet corner in the library, deliberately choosing a spot far from the distractions of the crowd. There, she immersed herself in her own studies, quietly preparing in her own way. Emma wasn't concerned with impressing anyone with her methods. Her focus was solely on devising a strategy that would give her the edge. Rather than memorizing passages verbatim, she broke down the material into smaller, more manageable chunks. Each lecture, each piece of information, became part of a broader narrative she could trace, filled with characters, motivations, and themes. She visualized the concepts as dynamic, living ideas rather than just static facts to memorize. Her tools were basic, a simple notebook and a stylus. While other students relied on advanced holographic displays and interactive interfaces, Emma's handwritten notes reflected her unique, personal engagement with the material. As she worked, she would softly mutter to herself, testing her recall, tying the data into a story she could follow. Critical thinking and creativity had always been her strengths, and now she was intent on using them to her advantage. Around campus, the news of the duel spread like wildfire. Alien students from all backgrounds exchanged theories and speculations. The buzz of excitement was palpable, but the majority of students believed Emma didn't stand a chance. "She's just a human," a Saurian student sneered, flicking their tail dismissively. "Her brain is not built for this. Viner's memory is superior by design." But not everyone shared that view. That's the Koran, who had tested Viner earlier, watched Emma from a distance, his golden eyes narrowing with curiosity. "Humans are unpredictable," he remarked to a fellow student, his tone contemplative. "They tend to surprise you when you least expect it." Back in her corner of the library, Emma continued refining her approach. She wasn't merely focused on remembering information. She aimed to understand it on a deeper level. Emma knew that to beat Viner, she couldn't play his game. If she tried to out-memorize a Saurian, she would fail. Instead, she drew on the unique strengths of humans: adaptability, creativity, and the ability to understand context. These, she believed, would be her secret weapon in the duel. As the first day of preparation ended, Ryan approached her with a tray carrying 2 steaming cups of pale blue liquid, an energizing drink popular at the Academy. He set one in front of her and hesitated, unsure of what to say. "You've been at this for hours," he observed, his voice tinged with concern. "Are you sure you're not overthinking it? Sometimes simplicity works better." Emma looked up at him, a small smile curving her lips as she took a sip of the drink. It was sweet and slightly tangy, a taste she had grown fond of since arriving. "Simplicity can be powerful," she agreed, her eyes thoughtful. "But this isn't about simplicity. It's about playing to my strengths." Ryan nodded, though doubt lingered on his face. "Everyone's betting against you, you know." "I know," Emma replied, her voice calm. "That's exactly why it'll be fun when I win." Her confidence surprised him, but he said nothing more. With a final glance at her, he retreated to his own studies, still unsure whether Emma was truly brave, extraordinarily clever, or just delusional. The second day of preparation unfolded much like the first. Viner continued his performance, adding more complexity to his demonstrations. He began incorporating elaborate hand gestures to mimic the patterns of quantum equations, which left his audience in awe. His shimmering crystalline skin gleamed as he worked, a reminder of the biological advantage he held over others. Emma, however, remained as focused as ever, undisturbed by the spectacle unfolding across the room. As the days passed, Emma's strategy began to evolve further. She found new ways to integrate the material, experimenting with mnemonic techniques that brought the lessons to life. For a particularly dense lecture on the history of galactic trade routes, she envisioned the planets as colorful spheres, each connected by glowing threads. Every thread represented a trade agreement, and she assigned different emotions to each route, depending on its success or failure. This method not only made the material easier to recall, but it also imbued it with personal meaning, giving it depth that would stick in her memory. By the third day, a noticeable shift occurred in the library. The once confident buzz of Viner's supporters began to wane, replaced by a subtle undercurrent of unease. While his recall remained flawless, there was a shift in his demeanor. His confidence, once unshakable, now seemed slightly diminished. Every time he glanced over at Emma, still focused and calm in her corner, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but something about her quiet determination made him uneasy. As the library emptied that evening, the soft glow of the lights casting long shadows, Emma stayed behind. She reviewed her notes for the last time. The duel was only hours away, and though she felt prepared, there was a lingering tension in the air. After a moment of reflection, she closed her notebook and leaned back in her chair. Her thoughts drifted toward Earth, the friends and family she had left behind. She thought about what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of beings who often underestimated her species. For Emma, this duel wasn't simply a competition. It was a chance to demonstrate that humanity's value extended beyond intellect or physical power. Humans possess something far more precious, the ability to find meaning in chaos, to see patterns where others saw only noise, and to connect ideas that seemed disconnected. These were the strengths she was relying on. Stepping out of the library and into the cool night air, Emma felt a quiet determination settle within her. The courtyard was bathed in starlight, and the weight of what was to come felt less heavy with each breath. She had come this far, and no matter what happened in the duel, she knew she was ready to give both Viner and the audience something to remember. The day of the duel arrived, bringing with it an almost palpable stillness that seemed to blanket the entire academy. Whispers of anticipation rippled through the halls as students of every species made their way to the grand atrium, a massive circular space designed for events of this scale. The walls glowed with holographic panels showcasing past academic challenges, their images flickering with historical significance. But today, all eyes were focused on the central stage. A podium stood between two chairs, the spot where the two competitors would face off. Viner was the first to arrive, his crystalline body gleaming in the artificial sunlight filtering down through the atrium's dome. He moved with fluid grace, his every step exuding confidence, almost as if the outcome was already decided. His supporters, a mix of Saurians and various other students, cheered him on, their voices rising in unison as he ascended the stage. Viner acknowledged them with a slight nod, his multifaceted eyes scanning the crowd, searching for Emma. She entered shortly afterward, her presence met with a quiet but uncertain murmur from the crowd. Unlike Viner, she made no effort to draw attention to herself. Emma walked with calm resolve, her green eyes never leaving the stage ahead of her. She wore the standard student uniform, simple and unadorned, a sharp contrast to Viner's ceremonial garb. His outfit shimmered with embedded crystals that refracted light, creating a rainbow of colors with every movement. As they took their seats, the tension in the air grew thicker. The murmurs of the crowd intensified, their anticipation building as the stage was set for the duel. It was clear that this was more than just a test of memory. It was a clash of ideologies, and the entire academy seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of the first move. A towering holographic professor appeared at the podium, the projection of the academy's artificial intelligence system, its form shifting continuously. The voice of the professor echoed across the atrium, commanding attention. "Welcome to the intergalactic memory duel," it announced. "Today, we witness a challenge between Viner of Zoria, known for his species' unparalleled tick memory, and Emma of Earth, representing humanity's adaptability and ingenuity. The rules are straightforward. Each competitor will listen to a lecture, after which they will be asked to recall its content with precision. Additional points will be given for contextual insights. The crowd buzzed with excitement as the mention of contextual insights hung in the air. This added dimension to the challenge seemed to favor Emma's strengths, the ability to think beyond rote memory. Viner's crystalline features darkened for just a moment, a fleeting sign of irritation. The lecture began, and the room fell silent as the holographic professor continued. "We will now proceed to the call phase. Each competitor will take turns recounting the lecture. Viner will begin." Viner stood, his crystalline body shimmering in the light, and recited the lecture with flawless precision. His voice echoed the exact rhythm and tone of the original speaker, capturing every pause and nuance. It was a performance of pure accuracy, and when he finished, the crowd erupted in applause, impressed by the perfect recall. Emma stood next, her movements deliberate and unhurried. The audience, once skeptical, watched her intently. Unlike Viner, she didn't attempt to mimic the lecture verbatim. Instead, she wove a narrative, blending the treatise, cultural nuances, and historical context into a coherent story. She highlighted the motivations of the species involved, the historical backdrop behind their actions, and the broader implications of their decisions. Her voice was steady, her words clear, each one chosen carefully to convey her understanding. As she spoke, the audience's perception began to shift. What began as quiet skepticism gradually transformed into intrigue. Emma wasn't just recalling information, she was bringing it to life. Even those who had doubted her found themselves drawn in by her perspective, which added layers of meaning to the lecture that Viner's flawless recollection had lacked. When Emma finished, there was a brief moment of stunned silence before the room erupted in applause and murmurs of admiration. The holographic professor stepped forward, its form flickering slightly as it processed the results. Both competitors have demonstrated exceptional memory and comprehension, the professor declared. Viner's recall was flawless, capturing every detail with mechanical precision. Emma, while less exact in her reproduction, provided a contextual analysis that added significant value to the material. Based on the criteria of recall accuracy and contextual insight, the results are as follows. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation, the atmosphere electric with tension. Emma glanced at Viner, whose crystalline features remained unreadable, though his eyes flickered with a subtle unease. She remained calm, her expression steady as she awaited the verdict. Emma of Earth is the winner. The announcement reverberated through the atrium, sending a wave of shock through the crowd. Viner's supporters were stunned, their confidence shattered in an instant. Emma's fellow humans erupted in cheers, their voices rising above the surrounding noise in celebration of her unexpected victory. Even some of the alien students who had doubted her joined in, clapping and nodding with newfound respect for the human who had defied expectations. Foz stood frozen for a moment before his features hardened. He nodded stiffly toward Emma, though it was clear the defeat stung. Emma, for her part, extended a hand to him. "Good match," she said sincerely. Viner hesitated before shaking her hand, his crystalline skin cool and smooth against hers. "You were unexpected," he admitted, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Emma smiled. "Humans tend to be." As the crowd dispersed, Emma remained on the stage for a moment, looking out over the sea of students. She had proven not just her own abilities but also the value of human ingenuity and adaptability in a galaxy filled with beings who often underestimated her kind. This victory was more than personal, it was a statement. The atrium buzzed with activity long after the duel had ended. The announcement of Emma's victory sent waves through the Intergalactic Academy, sparking debates, admiration, and, in some corners, resentment. For many students, particularly those who had always regarded humans as inferior, the outcome was both shocking and humbling. For Emma, it marked not just a personal achievement but a turning point in how humanity was perceived in this elite institution. Viner retreated to his study chamber almost immediately after the duel. His normally radiant crystalline form dimmed. The humiliation of losing, especially in front of such a large audience, weighed heavily on him. For CIANS, who valued their memory as the pinnacle of intellectual superiority, being bested in a memory-related challenge was unthinkable. He replayed the duel in his mind, searching for flaws in his performance, yet he couldn't deny Emma's brilliance. Her approach had been entirely different, and that difference had proven decisive. Meanwhile, Emma found herself the center of attention, a role she wasn't accustomed to and wasn't entirely comfortable with. Students from various species approached her, offering congratulations and asking questions about her methods. Some were genuinely curious, eager to learn from her. Others seemed intent on probing her for weaknesses, unable to believe that a human could have triumphed over a Saurian. Despite the overwhelming attention, Emma remained composed. She answered questions politely but succinctly, steering conversations away from herself whenever possible. She wasn't interested in basking in her victory. Instead, she focused on what the duel had revealed, the importance of perspective and the value of thinking differently. To her, the duel wasn't just about proving humanity's worth. It was about demonstrating that strength could come from unexpected places. Later that evening, Emma returned to her dormitory, a modest room with a view of the Academy's sprawling gardens. She sat by the window, staring out at the twin moons that hung low in the sky. The events of the day replayed in her mind, not as a victory to savor, but as a lesson to reflect on. She thought about Viner, about the pride he carried and the pressure he must have felt to uphold his species' reputation. Losing in such a public way would have been devastating for him, and she couldn't help but feel a pang of empathy. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Surprised, she stood and opened it to find Foz. Thomas, the Coron student who had watched the duel with keen interest. His golden eyes gleamed in the dim light, and his posture, though relaxed, carried an air of curiosity. "May I come in?" he asked, his voice low and smooth. Emma stepped aside, gesturing for him to enter. Foz moved with the fluid grace characteristic of his reptilian species, his tail swaying lightly as he took a seat at the small table in the corner of Emma's room. His posture was composed, his hands folding neatly in front of him. "I wanted to congratulate you privately," he began, his gaze steady and sincere. "What you did today was extraordinary. It wasn't just the victory, but the approach you took. You've given everyone a lot to think about." Emma smiled faintly, taking a seat across from him. "Thank you, but I don't think it was just about winning. It was about showing that there's more than one way to solve a problem." Foz nodded, his golden eyes narrowing slightly as he processed her words. "That's exactly why I wanted to speak with you. The Academy values diversity of thought, but in practice, many of us fall into the trap of thinking our way is the best. What you demonstrated today, the ability to think creatively and adapt, is something that can't be ignored." He leaned forward, his tone turning more serious. "Viner won't take this lightly. For him, this wasn't just a challenge. It was about pride. The CNS don't handle failure well, especially when it comes to something so integral to their identity as memory. Be prepared for some tension." Emma met his gaze calmly. "I didn't intend to humiliate him, but I won't apologize for doing my best. If there's tension, I'll handle it." Foz studied her for a moment before nodding in acknowledgement. "I believe you will, but be careful. Viner isn't the only one whose pride might be wounded. There are others who now see humanity as a threat, though they may not say it outright." His words hung in the air as he stood to leave, but before he exited, he turned back to her, his expression softening. "If you ever need an ally, you'll find one in me." After Foz left, Emma sat in silence, her thoughts swirling. The weight of her victory was no longer just about personal achievement. It was a responsibility she hadn't anticipated. She had challenged not only Viner but also the deeply ingrained assumptions and prejudices of an entire institution. Whether she liked it or not, she had become a symbol of humanity's potential. The following day, Emma returned to her usual routine, attending classes, studying in the library, but the atmosphere had shifted. Students who had once ignored her now watched her with a mix of curiosity and respect. Some approached her, eager to discuss everything from interstellar politics to quantum mechanics. Emma responded as best she could, always steering the conversations toward collaboration rather than competition. Meanwhile, Viner kept his distance. He avoided her in the hallways and remained silent during shared classes, but Emma could always feel his eyes on her, his silent observation. She knew he was studying her, trying to uncover what had given her the advantage. She didn't resent him for it. In fact, she welcomed the opportunity for him to learn something new, just as she had learned from the experience. As the weeks passed, the effects of the duel continued to ripple through the Academy. It became a frequent topic in lectures and debates, used as a case study for exploring the value of different approaches to problem solving. Emma's victory, it seemed, was not just a personal achievement. It had become a catalyst for change, forcing both students and faculty to reconsider their assumptions about intelligence, adaptability, and the nature of competition. And though Emma knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, she also knew that she had made a lasting impact. A reminder that strength could come from unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest challenges led to the most meaningful transformations. Emma sat quietly, absorbing the Chancellor's words. She had expected many things in her time at the Academy, but being summoned by the Council was not one of them. The weight of the conversation settled over her as NX continued. "Your victory," NX went on, "has opened a door to new conversations about diversity of thought and the value of alternative perspectives. However, there are those who feel threatened by this change. They fear that humanity's approach to problem solving could undermine the established order. We need you to help bridge these divides, to guide us in fostering a deeper understanding between the various species here." Emma's brow furrowed as she considered the request. "So, you want me to help the Academy reconcile these differences?" NX smiled slightly, the light from their glowing eyes flickering. "Yes, that's one way of looking at it. We believe your unique perspective, your understanding of adaptability and creativity, can serve as a guiding force in reshaping the Academy's culture. It's about ensuring that the diversity of ideas isn't just tolerated but celebrated." Emma leaned forward, her fingers tapping lightly on the armrest of the chair. "I'm honored by your trust, but I can't pretend to know how to change an entire institution. I've never set out to be a symbol of anything. I just did what felt right to me." "Precisely," NX replied, "and that is why you are the right person for this task. You have proven that small, individual acts can ripple outward and create larger transformations. It's It's not about being a symbol, Emma. It's about showing that each voice has value, especially when it challenges the status quo. That is what this academy needs now. Emma sat back, her mind racing with the implications of what was being asked of her. She had already proven her point with the duel, but now she was being asked to take on a leadership role she had never expected. Could she truly help change the academy's culture? Could she bridge the gaps between beings who had lived and thought differently for millennia? NX's voice interrupted her thoughts. We're not asking you to change minds overnight, Emma. We simply want you to help guide the academy through this moment of transition. Your actions can inspire others to find the courage to question long-held assumptions. Your presence here, your success, has already begun to create a shift. Now, we ask that you help lead the way forward. Emma took a deep breath, the weight of the responsibility settling on her shoulders. It wasn't something she had planned for, but it was an opportunity she couldn't ignore. Her victory hadn't just proven something about humanity, it had sparked something in others. Perhaps it wasn't just her own potential that needed to be recognized, but the potential of all those who had been overlooked because they didn't fit the established mold. I'll do what I can, Emma finally said, her voice steady, but I'll need support. I can't do this alone. NX nodded, their expression thoughtful. We will be here to support you. The council, the faculty, and even the students who now look to you. We will all be part of this effort. As Emma left the council chamber, her mind buzzed with possibilities. The path ahead wasn't clear, but for the first time, she felt a sense of purpose that went beyond her own individual success. She had always believed that change came from within, but now she had the chance to help guide that change on a much larger scale. As she walked through the halls of the academy, the weight of her new responsibility was heavy, but it also filled her with a quiet determination. This wasn't just about proving humanity's worth, it was about reshaping perceptions, about challenging old ways of thinking, and, ultimately, about helping the galaxy see that strength lay in the diversity of ideas, not just in conformity to established norms. What kind of help? Emma asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of apprehension. The Chancellor gestured toward a holographic display that materialized in the center of the room. It flickered to life, showing a series of initiatives designed to foster interspecies understanding, everything from workshops to collaborative research projects. The images and words on the display painted a picture of a bold, transformative effort. We believe your unique perspective could serve as a bridge between students who have become entrenched in their own ways of thinking, NX explained. We would like you to lead a program that explores alternative approaches to learning and problem solving, to show how different methods can work together rather than against each other. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had never imagined herself in a leadership role, especially one that could influence such a prestigious institution. She had always considered herself an observer, not someone who could change the course of something as monumental as the Intergalactic Academy. But as she looked around at the council members, she saw something unexpected, genuine hope. They weren't asking her to change who she was, they were asking her to share what had made her victory possible. After a long pause, Emma finally nodded, her voice steady but thoughtful. I'll do it, but only if it's a team effort. I don't want this to be about me. It should be about all of us learning from each other. NX smiled, a rare and subtle gesture for their species, but one that conveyed deep appreciation. That is precisely the spirit we hope to see. You will have our full support. The meeting ended with a sense of purpose, and as Emma left the chamber, she felt the weight of the task ahead. At first, it seemed overwhelming, but as she thought about it more, she realized that this wasn't just about her. It was about making the academy a place where diverse ideas and approaches were celebrated. She was just a catalyst for that change. Over the following weeks, Emma worked tirelessly to prepare for her new role. She collaborated with faculty and students to design a program that emphasized creativity, collaboration, and adaptability. She reached out to participants from all species, inviting even Viner, though she wasn't sure if he would be willing to join. The idea was to show that each species had something valuable to offer, and that working together could lead to something greater than the sum of its parts. When the day of the program's launch arrived, the central hall was packed with students. The atmosphere was a mix of curiosity and cautious optimism. Emma stood at the front, her calm demeanor hiding the nervousness she felt inside. She scanned the room and saw Viner entering, his crystalline form catching the light as he moved. He took a seat at the back of the room, his expression unreadable. She steadied her breath and began her speech. She spoke briefly but from the heart, emphasizing the importance of embracing differences, finding strength in diversity, and using challenges as opportunities to grow. Her words resonated with many in the room, and as the program unfolded, something shifted. Students students began to interact with one another in ways they had never done before. They shared stories, exchanged ideas, and collaborated on projects that blended their unique strengths. It was clear that something significant was happening. A new understanding was taking root. To Emma's surprise, Viner approached her during one of the sessions. He spoke with his usual measured tone, but there was an openness in his words she hadn't expected. "I underestimated you," he admitted quietly, "not just in the duel, but in what you represent. I see now that memory is only one piece of the puzzle." Emma smiled, sensing the sincerity in his voice. "And your memory is remarkable," she replied, "but combining it with insight and creativity, that's where the real magic happens." Their conversation marked the beginning of an unexpected alliance. Over time, Viner became one of the program's most active participants. Instead of seeking personal recognition, he used his remarkable memory to help others, supporting collaborative efforts and sharing his abilities with humility. Together, they demonstrated what was possible when differences were celebrated, rather than feared. As the program grew, so did its impact. The Academy began to transform. Students and faculty alike started adopting a more holistic approach to learning, one that valued diverse perspectives and fostered collaboration. Emma's victory in the memory duel had become more than just a personal achievement. It had sparked a larger movement within the Academy, one that would have lasting effects. For Emma, the journey was far from over. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, and there would always be more to learn, more to prove. But as she stood in the central hall, watching students of every species working together, she felt a profound sense of hope. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not by conforming to the expectations of others, but by staying true to its unique strengths. And for the first time, Emma didn't just feel like a student. She felt like part of something far greater, a galaxy united by the power of understanding.